The wind howled through the empty fields of Willow Creek, a small town tucked away in a valley surrounded by dense forests. The year was 1965, and the night was eerily still, save for the occasional rustle of leaves. Ethan Harper, a young farmer in his early 20s, stood frozen in his cornfield. His lantern flickered weakly in his trembling hand as he stared ahead, unable to comprehend the sight before him. Max, his loyal dog, whined and barked at the unnatural glow spreading across the sky, but Ethan could barely hear him over the deafening hum that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Above him, the sky was ablaze with swirling colors, violent reds, electric blues, and sickly greens that painted the heavens in a chaotic dance. The colors pulsed, as if alive, and at their center was a massive, metallic craft. It hovered silently, defying gravity, its surface smooth and reflective, casting distorted images of the cornfield below. Ethan's breath hitched as the craft emitted a beam of light, brighter than the sun, illuminating the field with an unnatural clarity. From the light emerged figures, tall, impossibly slender beings with translucent skin that shimmered like liquid glass. Their eyes, large and devoid of pupils, glowed faintly, reflecting the swirling chaos above. One by one, they stepped forward, their movements fluid and unnervingly precise. Ethan wanted to run, to scream, but his body refused to obey. He was rooted in place, paralyzed by a force he couldn't see or understand. Max's barking turned into a yelp as one of the beings raised a long, delicate hand. The dog collapsed, unconscious but unharmed. Ethan's lantern fell from his grasp, extinguishing itself in the damp soil. The tallest of the figures approached him, its head tilting slightly as if studying him. A strange sensation washed over Ethan, like 1,000 whispers brushing against his mind. The being reached out, its fingers impossibly long and thin, and touched his forehead. The world around him dissolved into darkness. Ethan woke with a start, his heart pounding. He was in his bed, the morning sun streaming through the window. For a moment, he thought it had all been a nightmare, but his body ached as if he'd been running for miles. His clothes were damp with sweat, and his boots, still on his feet, were caked with mud. He glanced at Max, who lay at the foot of the bed, seemingly unharmed but unusually quiet. Ethan tried to recall the events of the night before, but his mind was a haze. Every time he grasped at the memory, it slipped away, leaving only a vague sense of dread. Life in Willow Creek resumed as if nothing had happened. Ethan tried to shake off the unease, but he couldn't ignore the strange occurrences around town. Animals were restless, electronics malfunctioned, and some of the townsfolk reported vivid nightmares of swirling lights and shadowy figures. Despite this, no one seemed to connect the dots. It was as if a collective fog had settled over their minds, suppressing the truth. Decades later, the once bustling town of Willow Creek had become a shadow of its former self. Many residents had moved away, leaving behind a quiet, aging community. Among those who remained was Martha, a retired schoolteacher who had lived in the town her entire life. Martha's grandson, Alex, had recently moved back to help her with the house. The two shared a close bond, often spending evenings reminiscing about the past. But lately, Martha had been troubled by vivid dreams of swirling lights, shadowy figures, and a paralyzing hum that seemed to echo in her waking hours. One night, as Martha described her dreams to Alex, he grew unusually quiet. He had been having similar dreams of a metallic object in the sky, of beings with glowing eyes, and of a suffocating fear that lingered long after waking. The coincidence was too striking to ignore. As they began to share their experiences with others in the town, they discovered they weren't alone. Many of the older residents had been experiencing the same dreams, their details eerily consistent. Alex, curious and determined, began digging into the town's history. While exploring the attic, he stumbled upon an old journal tucked away in a dusty box. It belonged to Ethan Harper, a name he didn't recognize. The journal described, in haunting detail, the events of that fateful night in 1965. Ethan wrote about the lights, the hum, and the figures that had emerged from the beam. He described the paralysis, the overwhelming fear, and the sensation of his memories being wiped away. The final entry was chilling, I can feel it slipping away. The memory fades even as I write. I must record this before it's gone forever. The journal's discovery sent ripples through the community. As more people came forward with their dreams and fragments of memories, a pattern began to emerge. The dreams weren't just dreams, they were echoes of a shared experience, buried deep in their subconscious. But why were the memories resurfacing now? The answer came one quiet evening when the hum returned. It started faint, barely audible, but grew louder with each passing moment. The sky lit up once more, and the same swirling colors painted the heavens. This time, the townsfolk gathered in the square, their fear mingled with a strange sense of anticipation. The object descended again, just as it had decades before. But this time, the figures that emerged were not silent observers. They spoke, their voices resonating directly in the minds of the townsfolk. "We mean no harm," the beings said, their tone calm but urgent. "You were chosen to bear witness, to prepare for what is to come." The beings explained that their visit in 1965 had been a precaution. They had erased the memories of the encounter to protect humanity from knowledge it wasn't ready to handle. But now, a cosmic event threatened not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. A rogue alien species was destabilizing star systems, and Earth was next in line. The townsfolk of Willow Creek, marked by the first encounter, were uniquely equipped to help. The beings had left dormant abilities within them, telepathy, heightened senses, and an innate understanding of the being's technology. The revelation divided the town. Some, like Alex, believed the beings and were willing to help. Others, led by Sheriff Carter, were skeptical, viewing the beings as a threat. Tensions rose as the town became a battleground of trust and fear. Meanwhile, the beings worked with those who were willing, teaching them how to activate their latent abilities and build a device to counter the rogue aliens' destabilizing force. As the deadline approached, the rogue aliens arrived, their ships dark and foreboding. A battle ensued in Willow Creek, the townsfolk and their allies fighting to protect their home. The device, a complex array of energy and technology, was activated just in time, creating a shield that repelled the invaders and stabilized the planet's core. In the aftermath, the beings thanked the townsfolk and departed, promising to return if needed. Willow Creek was forever changed, its residents now united by their shared experience. They vowed to protect their planet and preserve the memory of the encounter for future generations, ensuring that the forgotten night of 1965 would never be forgotten again.